Hey, how you doing? Matt Martin with Epic Property Management with vlog number 4 of Epic Adventures in Real Estate. Last vlog we covered how to post and where to post your apartments and how to really put the apartments together, taking pictures, videos, etc. Today we're going to talk about what's next, right? And that's finding and choosing the right tenants. This is the most important part of everything. You can have the best or the crappiest ad out there, but if you pick and choose the wrong tenant, my gosh, your life will be hell, to put it nicely, until you get that person out the door. And if you choose the right person, you're barely going to hear from them, only when they need something. So you have some tenants that are far in between, that can go from one side of the scale to the other. So what's important is that you don't find somebody on the other. You don't want those shitty tenants. You want a good one. And here's what I do when I do that. So when I list the apartments, I'm using sites like I told you, like Zillow.com. I'm using apartments.com, which used to be cozy.co, which is the site that I use, but it transitioned to apartments.com. Another site that I use for one of the group of apartments that I property manage is software called Appfolio. Now, I'm not a sponsor. I'm not sponsored by them. They don't pay me. I actually pay them. But the site is really slick. It's inexpensive, and it allows you to do a lot of great things. One of the great things it does are the full background checks for you as you're putting in the information from the tenant from the application. It also lists the apartment on, I don't know, dozens of websites all at once. There is a monthly fee there's a monthly fee, and then there's a per unit fee on top of it. If you go to their website, again, I'm not endorsing it. I'm not sponsored by them, but I am a fan of their product. You can go there and you can take a peek at their entire software and kind of how it functions and flows. So what I like is just the ease of use of it. So anyways, getting back to choosing the right tenants, the reason I brought them up. When I am choosing the tenants, what's really great is they make it really simple, and I blacked everything out that has information. And one easy to read screenshot of the tenant, plus it gives further information that's there. But it covers the most important things that you have. So it starts with, and this is the same for Zillow.com as well as apartments.com for their screening process, because as a landlord, these are things you want to know. Credit score. So that's number one, is the credit score. A lot of people think that their salaries can maybe compensate for a low credit score. Never. It should never, ever happen. Somebody's credit score is a true indicator of their ability to pay. Now, there are times where you can't just go by that hard number. Things in life happen, especially over the last year or so with COVID. People have lost their jobs. They don't have the ability to pay. Excuse me. There might have been doctor bills that insurance has not covered for them, that they just, again, they can't afford to pay. Or something happened in their life. Maybe they had to relocate for one reason or another, and they have some outstanding debt that's there. This is where you have to dive into the credit report and take a peek at it to see if everything has been paid or brought back to a current status. That's really critical and important to me, because if somebody isn't paying for a certain time frame, but since then, 6 months ago, say 3 months ago, they start paying and everything's back to current, and now they're just rebuilding their credit, there are times where I'll look past a credit score for that reason, and that reason alone. Now, where is that sweet spot of the best tenants to find? Well, if this was pre-COVID, I would have said that 570-ish is a great score to have at the bottom. People there are paying their bills, sometimes just a little bit slow, but the majority of them are current for everything that's there. So I was typically okay with that. Then COVID came along. It was a game changer. I have one tenant that hasn't paid rent since COVID began. So now we're talking over a year, and there's nothing I can do about it as far as evicting him for not paying. because of the memorandums that have been put in place. So essentially, this guy has been living in this apartment for free, and I know there's a lot of landlords out there with this issue. So now when I'm looking at credit scores, the very bottom that I'm going to look at is 600. It's gone up. It's a little tougher. It's going to disqualify some people, and I understand that life happens, and I'm still going to look at it case by case to try to understand why maybe somebody has a poor credit score or a lesser than average credit score. But it's worth a conversation to find out why. And you'll know rather quickly if you're getting BS'd or not, because they're going to say things like, well, this lender screwed up my payments, and that one screwed up my payments, and that one screwed up my payments. I get once in a while that a bank or a credit union or something like that, a credit card company, might screw up and misapply a payment, but there's ways to dispute that to show that it was accurate, that it was inaccurately reported, and how to get it corrected. So it's an easy thing to fix. You can do it right through a lot of different websites. You can go to right to Experian, you can go to creditkarma.com. There's so many different websites that you can go to and file these reports to fix it. But if somebody is telling you that everybody's misapplying their payments over and over again, chances are you're getting BS'd. And again, look at things like medical bills. Not everybody can afford to pay medical bills. Not everybody has health insurance. Massachusetts does have mandatory health insurance that's put out there, and they have a great program called Mass Health for people that can't afford health insurance that covers pretty much everything. But a lot of states out there do have something similar on top of the government plans that are there, whether you agree with them or not. So really take a good look at what the payment history is, even when somebody does have a great credit score. What you also want to look for is the amount of money that they have to pay. So somebody might have great credit, but they have a ton of money for monthly debt that's owed. Car payments. It's not abnormal that I see car payments that are close to $1,000 a month for whatever reason. Somebody might be a high income earner, they want a nice Mercedes, an Audi, whatever, and they're buying great cars. At least to them, they're great, and it's important that they have those cars. So you see things like that. You see the credit card payments. A lot of credit cards offer different programs for financing. Take big box retailers. If you look at like Home Depot, Lowe's, Best Buy, stores like that have their own credit cards, they're constantly offering 12 to 18 months of interest-free payments. Make sure that those payments aren't going to negatively affect when they do come due. If they do have to pay them, make sure that they're not going to negatively affect the ability for that tenant to pay because they needed that 80, 90-inch TV and they financed it at 0%. Then they went to Home Depot and bought something else, and they went to a couple other retailers and did the same thing. So always dive into it a little deeper than what you normally would. Let's talk a little bit about background checks, because again, this is so critical. And really where my whole thought process on this is that if I'm living in one of my apartments, I want to make sure that I feel safe putting somebody in that building, and I have the same expectation and the same responsibility as a landlord to make sure level of safety that I'm providing all my tenants. So the first thing that we do is look at a criminal background check. Now, here's what's great. Zillow.com and Appfolio, that app I talked about, as well as apartments.com. If you're using one of those, when they do the criminal background check, it's nationwide. Here's why that's important. Where I'm located, I am right on the border. Literally, I am right on the Mass and New Hampshire border. So there are websites that are out there. When they do the background check, it's for the state that the apartment is in only. So if somebody is not a great person and they have a bad background of something that happened, say in New Hampshire, and they're coming to Massachusetts to try to have it not reported, they're going to succeed. And you're just not going to know who that person is that's in there. Now, when we're looking at background checks, let's talk a little bit about criminal background checks. You have to respect the fact that people pay their dues to society while they're in prison or jail, and that they can be reformed. So if it's something fresh, or you see a trend, of assault and batteries, multiple, that just keep happening. Or you see a similar trend that somebody is in and out of jail for shoplifting or whatever, chances are they have not truly paid their due to society and been rehabbed. So when you're looking at the criminal background checks, don't just say no to somebody because maybe they did something 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Give everybody a shot and find out what happened and what they've done to then redeem themselves. It's amazing what programs are out there that can help somebody help turn their life around, and basic ones that are not, I hate using the word basic with this because it's so game changing to so many people, but even like Alcoholics Anonymous and things like that, Narcotics Anonymous, can really change somebody's life, their outlook. Some people find religion and it makes them a great person in society. So there's multiple factors. It's worth a conversation. Don't just write somebody off unless you see something that's habitual. The next one, sex offender. Again, not every website will do it for the entire nation. Make sure that, using Zillow, apartments.com, and Appfolio, as well as others that are out there. Again, I'm not being sponsored or paid by any of them. It's just what I've used in the past. It's never okay for sex offenders, ever. It doesn't matter the level, nothing. I'll never rent to somebody that lands on that sex offender. It's an automatic disqualification, and I don't want to hear the story because it's probably not a good one. So I never ever rent to anybody with anything that comes up in the sex offender. What I will do if something does come up is ask them to verify that it's true, because again, sometimes things get inaccurately reported and I'd hate to disqualify somebody. But all I do is just ask if the person is on the sex offender registry. Chances are you go right to the local police department's website and it'll tell you if that person is to verify if you don't want to have that conversation. I've done both. I've only had a pop up once in the entire time I've been renting apartments and property managing. So we're talking 5-6 years. And when I went to the website, it did verify that the person was indeed a sex offender, and it was a high level. So they were immediately disqualified and we moved to the next application. References. My gosh. All right. So references. People go both ways with this one. When I first started renting apartments, I didn't believe in references because why would you give a bad reference of yourself, right? I get it. You want to get a reference from somebody that is probably a little unbiased or will give you the truthful answer. And during COVID, there's a lot of people that have been paid to leave, meaning that keys, money for keys, cash for keys, whatever you want to call it, which means that they were not good tenants. They weren't paying their rent for whatever reason. And they got, a check for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, I've heard, being paid to move out of an apartment, which is horrible for the landlord to have to not collect rent and then pay somebody to leave. Unfortunately, I've had to do it a couple times to get somebody out during COVID, but it was well worthwhile in the long run for me to do this. Now, why would a reference for a landlord not state that? Well, if they want that person out of their apartment, why would they say that the person isn't paying them and that they're paying them to get out, right? So be careful about references and who you are accepting references from. What I try to do before I pick up the phone to call the reference, because I do call them, is I go on to the state website of the land records and I make sure that the person that it says is the landlord is truly the landlord. Because on multiple occasions, I've had people put down cousins or family members that were not really their landlords to say that they were landlords. So make sure that you're connecting that. And an easy way to find the direct number to a landlord once you do go on the state website through the land records is I use truepeoplesearch.com. Go on there and look yourself up. It's wild, the stuff that comes up on there. It's free, but it has phone numbers. And 9 times out of 10, they're accurate phone numbers, cell phone numbers, home numbers, etc. Excuse me. So you're going to be able to really see who that person is that you're trying to reach out to and the best number to reach them. Jobs, same thing. Don't take their phone number that they give you on the application for the truth all the time. I always go on Google and I start hunting down the business phone numbers out of there, and then I'll even go to linkedin.com to make sure that that person works for the company if I can verify it before I pick up that phone. Because again, people aren't always the most forthcoming, and it happens. So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. You don't want to get stuck with a bad tenant. Now, something that I want to put out there, it's never okay to say that I'm not going to rent to women, or to only this age group, or to this sex, or to this orientation, or this kind of history. I'm not going to rent to somebody from this religion. None of that is ever, ever okay. So never take that as a contributing reason why you are or are not going to rent to somebody. You have to put blinders on those, because it's just not fair, it's not legal, but it's also just not right. You want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt to really showcase who they are and how great they can or can't be. So those are the things that I do when I'm looking and choosing tenants. We're going to dive into that a little bit deeper on another vlog coming forward.